Did you see it? We went past it. They denied inflation existed, and now they're saying they knew it all along, and it's intractable, and it's going to go much worse, you see? There was no transitionary period. There was no interregnum. It just went from 0 to oops.
Right. Well, the question for the audience is, are you prepared? That is the first headline here, Max. Are you prepared for the mass repricing of goods and services? I might also ask that, are you prepared for the mass repricing of risk? Because that has been mispriced for the past 20 years, especially the past 10 years since the global financial crisis of 2008, 2009. You have mentioned it here many times about this, the mispricing of risk. And I think this is part of the reason why we see this supply chain chaos. We see partly because of all the misallocation of capital that happened because of the mispricing of risk for the past decade or so.
Yep, everyone knows the Einstein E equals mc squared, which was the beginning of the atomic age because you separated energy from matter. But a lot of people don't understand that the options pricing volatility formula of the, I guess it's the mid 70s, early 80s, created an equal atomic weapon in the financial markets, because for the first time you could separate risk from reward and trade risk separately. And that was the beginning of the modern derivatives market, listed options market. And what this allowed for financiers to do was to engage in the practice of underwriting securities and trading securities in a way where they could package the risk, sell it separately. And lo and behold, a lot of that packaged risk ended up in places where it shouldn't end up, like pension funds and other static pools of capital. Now, here we are 40 years later, and the risk has accumulated in these vast pools that are unable to be absorbed anymore by any of the accounting tricks or financier tricks. And this is causing, as you say, a repricing of risk. And it shows up with the repricing of inflation. So we're seeing a quantum jump in inflation, really, but it's been incipient. It's been there for 10, 20 years. Now we're going to see the step change, and suddenly we're going to be living in this world where gas is, $6 a gallon in the United States, not $2.50 to $3 a gallon. And people will say, well, how did that happen? Well, it took about 30 years for that to be engineered on Wall Street. Well, one of the ways that they hide it, of course, for the past 20 years is that the poor in America have gotten poorer, and they've gotten vastly more numerous. And the billionaire class have gotten more billionaire to a great extent. But the government reports in the aggregates. So they always take the poor and the billionaire and they put them together. They say, if you put those two together, we don't see any inflation. Well, this worked for about 20 years and people were fooled by this. And anyone who complained was considered to be anti-American. Well, now, because of the misallocation of risk for so long and the ricochet or the boomerang of risk coming back into the system, we now have catastrophic system failure. And you're going to see a ratcheting up of inflation to reflect this. And it's going to be interesting to see, as I predicted, the contortions being used in the mainstream media, the pretzel logic, as I call it, to explain why. And we hear this from Jen Psaki from the White House trying to describe what inflation is, and the verbal gymnastics used to try to put this together for the lay audience is amazing and frightening, but entirely predictable.
Remember, the Fed has said there's no shame in saying that that inflation is no longer transitory. Well, Janet Yellen, so this is their mindset, right? This is what they're thinking at the executive branch. To me, a wise and humane policy is occasionally to let inflation rise, even when inflation is running above target. That's the executive branch of the White House.
Well, it's important to understand what we're talking about here with inflation. And it would be one thing if the money printing was evenly distributed. That would be one factor. That would be one approach. But of course, that's not the way the money is distributed. The money is distributed through the primary dealers, of which there are, I think, 18 of them now on Wall Street. And they get essentially 10 for every one that ends up in the pockets of people working on, let's say, the minimum wage or are in the lower wage category. So it's not evenly distributed. And so that's a factor that is completely overlooked or not talked about. And without a shadow of a doubt, it undermines purchasing power. We see it even in labor. McDonald's, I saw a sign, they're offering $21 an hour. Work at McDonald's, even 6 months ago, they were fighting to raise it to 15 from the single digits that it was before. If the minimum wage had been keeping track of real inflation for the past 20 or 30 years, the minimum wage would already in America be $50 an hour. That's how it would be to map the money printing. But because of those financial engineers who were able to separate risk from reward starting in the 1980s, they were able to keep labor completely out of the mix. So labor hasn't had the benefit of all that quantitative easing until recently.
Well, the thing about this slowly and then suddenly, why people, nations, individuals go bankrupt slowly and then suddenly, is because everybody loves inflation at the beginning, just like everybody loved Bernie Madoff. And the reason why they loved Bernie Madoff was because they thought he was scamming or defrauding somebody else and giving them a cut. And it was all polite and in good society. Well, the same thing here is everybody thinks they're getting wealthy with the beginning of inflation, with the beginning of the misallocation of capital. Who doesn't want to just sit at home and shop all day and, Instagram all day and make your life seem like amazing? Who doesn't want that, right? And then suddenly you have something like a pandemic and you realize that nobody at all in your country is able to manufacture a mask, because nobody wants to get out of bed for less than $10,000 a day. So who wants to go do that grind of the actual work of manufacturing? But it's the manufacturing process itself, which is where you have innovation. It happens on the factory floor. Thank God for Elon, even though we diss him all the time. He's one of the few companies in America left that actually still manufactures something here. And even then, because of this misallocation of capital that has happened, where people don't understand the whole process of wealth creation any longer, you see that he was driven out of California. And he was tweeting about that in the past week or two, where he's now gone. He set up headquarters for Tesla in Texas. He left as the legislators in California said, good riddance, go. They said that to him a year or two ago during the pandemic when they didn't want him to have operations running. And there you go. This is the sort of mentality of misallocation of capital, is you forget how wealth is created.
Right. You have to either have a command and control economy where you're fixing prices, as you would find in a socialist or communist economy, or you have a free market economy. The worst would be what we have in America today, which is that you just print money without any rules or regulations, and you let the kleptocrats and the oligarchs do whatever they're going to do. And that's resulting in social cohesion risk, as the Economist magazine likes to call it, what we would call rioting. And we're seeing the country collapse because nobody wants to apply any standards of accounting to their money printing.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information, and it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. You have to become active. So do it now. Become active and see you on the other side.